about you in the first place. So it's this sort of drifting away from you being the central character in the play that is your life. And the more we can expand our viewpoint to include the situation, people, circumstances, the more we're going to be able to see what's, and I'll use just the phrase, what's really happening. But it's not what we're trained to do. We're trained to look at anything and say, well, how does it affect me? Even if it's on the other side of the world, we make this unconscious, we ask this unconscious question of what does that mean to me, and how will it affect me? And should I be afraid of that, or should I be for it? We have to make a choice about everything that's going on. We have to decide, where do we fit it into our grand scheme of who and what we are. But if we break away from that thought pattern of what's in it for me, I guess is the best way to put that, if we expand it out a little bit, we lose less anxiety and tension about what's going on to us, because we're focusing on larger and larger rings of influence going out, and where we become part of a large story instead of the central figure in the story. So, and the way we do that, one of the ways we can do that is by using this technique of noticing, because it removes you from the exact center of your story and puts you out just a little bit farther away from the dead center of your own story. So you're kind of watching, one part of your awareness is watching you as if it were someone else, or the person next to you, or whatever. This allows you to see influences and see more of, again, I'll use that word, what's really happening. Because if someone were to walk in this room and just observe this group, they would see things completely differently than any one of us would. Because each one of us has a viewpoint, and each one of us has a relationship with what's happening. I mean, we all know each other to some degree, at least we recognize each other. I don't know how well we all know each other, but we know who each other are. We've been here before, so your expectation is that I'm going to talk for an hour, and we're going to have a little bit of comment later on or whatever. But we sort of kind of know how this is going to go. We don't know what's going to happen, but we kind of know how it's going to go. If someone were to walk in here completely cold off the street, they wouldn't have any idea what's going on. They would look at it and go, what's going on? And then they would look for key things. It's like, well, okay, he seems to be talking more than everyone else. He's in a different chair. He's, whatever. So then they're going to start to create an idea of what they think is going on. Well, we can do the same thing in our own awareness when we're in a situation with a number of people or events that are going on. We can stand back a little bit and ask the question, what's going on? It's just like this little voice in the back of your head. It's something you have to develop, because it doesn't sound like, well, I don't have a voice in the back of my head. Well, actually you do, but you haven't paid attention to it in a very long time. Children do this all the time, naturally. Children, there's almost nobody there in young children. They're reacting, they're experiencing on different levels, they're creating their own friends to talk with. I mean, it's like they're not centralized yet on a lot of levels. So it's quite easy and possible for our brains to do this. We just have to develop the skill a little bit more. And again, I understand that the question might be hanging, well, what's the point? The point is that it allows us to stop having this almost machine gun quality of reactions to what's going on. It's like judgments coming one after another after another. It's like, and it's totally subconscious, but you are literally in your daily life, as you're doing whatever you're doing, you're making micro judgments every second of what's going on, what are you doing, how are you reacting, and you don't even notice it. And you get to the end of the day and you're exhausted and you don't understand why. You're mentally exhausted because your brain has been in this mode of just, I need to decide what I feel about what's going on every second of the day. React, don't react. Anger, fear, happiness, pain, confusion, all these, and they're tiny little, almost like flashes of just, you don't even notice them unless you look for them. You know, have you ever, been listening to someone and all of a sudden you all of a sudden realize you're judging them and go, oh, well, look at me. I'm judging them. Ooh, who am I? It's that kind of thing. It's like all these things are so unconscious, or they happen in a way we don't notice them. By taking this observer role and looking at what our reactions are, we can, and again, this almost happens subconsciously. By just noticing without judging, we stop the little judgments. We don't consciously do it, but because we notice them, we, on a less than conscious level, stop doing them. Because we realize that they're of no use. And so it's really subtle. It's something that happens, it's not real conscious. It's not real, like, if you tried to do this consciously, oh my gosh, you'd probably drive yourself crazy. But this noticing is what being mindful is. You're minding what's happening, and what's happening, quite honestly, is you. Everything is judged through that filter of you. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what we do. We're humans. We have this point of view that is us. But we have no control over it. And some of us have learned to be very good at doing this to a point that is unhealthy, because it serves really no purpose. It's almost as if our survival instincts, our sense of needing to survive, that we used to use all the time because we lived in an environment that was dangerous, meaning, sort of the uncivilized world. It's like we've taken that survival instinct and we've turned it into a mental survival instinct instead of a physical one. So now we're protecting ourselves against psychological threat instead of physical threat. And so now we've just taken over. Instead of walking through the forest looking around for up and down and around the trees and what's going on and who's going to come out from from somewhere we don't see, now we're mentally doing that. And we're looking at people and things and places, and all these little judgments are just snapping around, and our minds are just like buzzsaws of emotion and judgment and thought. And if we can get away from that, if we can get to that point where our minds still, they get quiet, and we don't do that anymore, it's like all of a sudden you have all this extra ability you'll be more energetic. When you do put your mind to something, you'll have more mental acuity. You won't get lost in the stories that we do when we talk to people and situations. It's about noticing, and when you start noticing, you'll be amazed